At least 6 Israelis are dead after a massive terrorist attack in Jerusalem. Well, Israeli tour guide Ron Lahad joins us now from Jerusalem with the breaking details. Ron, what can you tell us?
Hey, Raj. So, this morning in Jerusalem, 10 a.m. in the morning, 2 terrorists made it to the Ramot Junction, central location in the kind of center-north part of the city on a busy day. People going back to work, people going back to their education systems, and soldiers going back to base. Two of the 2 terrorists actually boarded bus 62 and started shooting bystanders, civilian targets, of course. The youngest of the casualties currently is 25 years old, and the oldest is a 79-year-old who's also an American citizen who immigrated to Israel in 1993. We're talking about soft target. Civilian casualties, we have at least 15 wounded. Of course, all the details we have are up to this current moment. The 2 Palestinians actually came in illegally into Jerusalem. They were not permit holders. They were not people who had a permission to enter from the greater area. As you know, Jerusalem is surrounded by Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank. And even with the same situation and with checkpoints and controlled passing, there still are illegal breaches that have probably been used by these guys. And it brings us back to the old days. And I can tell you that this morning, even without getting any text message, just by listening to all the ambulances rushing by to the central hospitals, just like my childhood. That's how we could tell. That's how we could tell that something happened in Jerusalem. So that's the current situation.
Yeah, this attack definitely feels like the second Intifada. Obviously, you've been involved in these security operations. You've obviously been involved in military operations. What happens in Israel, in Jerusalem, when an attack like this happens? What's the immediate, 60 to 120 minute responses of the Israeli security forces?
So first of all, these are things that are semi-classified but semi-published. But let's put it this way. First, I have to mention the 2 terrorists were not neutralized by police. They were neutralized by an armed soldier who's an ultra-Orthodox soldier from the new brigade that was just established, who rushed to the scene, who engaged, as we call it, Khatira Lemaga, actually physically rushing and engaging, and by an armed civilian who actually inherited his grandfather's pistol, who was legally holding it. So, of course, you have to remember that we're talking about the force multiplier situation that exists in Jerusalem. That's why, of course, Jerusalem being an easy target, there still is a higher population of armed citizens and civilians who can be of assistance in case of emergency. So, of course, immediately first responders come to the scene. The biggest threat is you have to neutralize the region because the second wave, the second attack that might be waiting for the first responders. So I can tell you that, for example, that after you get emergency police, of course, undercover, everything you can think about, they try to, keep a sterile region, let people work. First, you do triage for the wounded people, try to redirect them to the actual hospitals. Try to work with who's critically wounded, who's just severely injured, people with can be an anxiety or panic attacks that can be involved. You're talking about a massive load, just even over 15 casualties in 1/8. You're still talking about a massive amount of ambulances, and so first you have to neutralize the region, and the rest is, of course, with the news agencies that come in and report. But the whole city is prepared, because one attack somewhere can lead to another attack somewhere else, can maybe inspire someone. So it's not a lockdown, but it's DEFCON 4.
Well, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad praise the attack. But, one thing that I just find, I guess the word is fascinating, is, there was just this massive terrorist attack in Jerusalem. You live in Jerusalem. I've been texting some of my buddies in Jerusalem, and there is a resolve, a calmness, a steadfastness about Israelis that just it's hard to process. It seems like if this was happening in anywhere in the States, people would be freaking out, losing their minds. But there's almost like we've seen this before. We know how to handle this. This is something that's not new. So I guess maybe in closing, Ron, I know this might be kind of a curveball question. What do you hope the world sees about this? What do you want the world to know about terrorist attacks like this?
So first of all, to add to what you're saying, yeah, this is something we're used to. People who have background or just growing up here. So what I can say is I hope the world understand that there's a reason these things happen. It's inspiration, but this is when people talk about resistance. This is that resistance that they mentioned. That's the muqawama that is in Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islam. That's in Hamas, but they didn't make it up. There's other groups out there inspiring. This is what we're handling, using terrorists to hit soft targets. This is what, when you're pushing against Israel and saying, by all means, this is what you're calling for. So understanding the monster we're seeing, this is the indoctrination that groups like Hamas, like the Islamic Jihad, and other radical Islamist jihadi groups are trying to push for, trying to create. That is why there's work happening all over. But you have to remember that we live here as civilians. We have Jews, Christian, Muslim, in Jerusalem, Armenians, all sorts of people who are just trying to live their lives here together. And there's radicals who try to radicalize others, and they should not get up support from anything. You should need to call the child by its name and understand that this is a threat and this is what we live with, and we can't change its name just because it sounds cool.
Amen. Amen. Well, we will be praying for the peace of Jerusalem. I'll be praying for you and your wife. Ron Lahad, God bless, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much.